Today I'd like to talk to you about 7 principles that help promote success. I gathered my information from Shawn Achor's book, The Happiness Advantage. The first principle, weirdly enough, is entitled The Happiness Advantage, which talks about treating happiness like a superpower. And that becomes evident when we start looking at the real definition of happiness. The basic definition of happiness is a positive feeling for the present and a positive emotion for the future. Aristotle used the Greek word eudaimonia, which means human flourishing, for happiness. So right there, when we look deeper into happiness, it shows that happiness is really essential for humans to feel in order to live fulfilling lives. Happiness can further be broken down into 10 positive emotions. Those emotions happen to be joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. Could you imagine a day where you felt all 10 of those emotions, or maybe even just 5 of them? You would feel pretty superhuman, wouldn't you? If that doesn't make you a believer, listen to this. A group of scientists took a bunch of people and somehow or another measured how happy they were feeling. They then injected all of them with the common cold. Now, who got over their cold faster? The ones who were happier to begin with. Why? Because they had a boosted immune system because of the levels of serotonin and dopamine from feeling happy was elevated in their brains. Serotonin and dopamine, or happiness, also further engages the learning centers in our brain. There has been study after study done where it shows that those who are feeling happy or happier before faced with a challenging task like conquering the common cold or taking a standardized test outperform those who are feeling less happy than themselves. The second principle is the fulcrum and the lever. Archimedes said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I can move the world." That's the basic principle of levers. The longer your lever is, the more you can lift with less effort. Think of a teeter-totter. Achor goes on to explain, or to say, that the power to maximize our potential is based on 2 things. Our lever, or how much potential power we think we have, and our fulcrum, which is the mindset. We cannot emphasize the power of the mind too much, and here's one story that illustrates that. There's a group of Japanese scientists who took 13 people who were highly allergic to poison ivy. They blindfolded them and then rubbed one of their arms with a plant that they had told them was harmless, but it was actually poison ivy. Only 2 had an allergic reaction. There is the power of a positive mindset. It could stop an allergic reaction. The mental construction of our day, or basically how we think or how we feel about what we're doing, more than the actual activity or action, defines our reality. So, if we think we had a bad day, of course we had a bad day. But if we can think back and look at the good things in our day, we can have a great day. This goes on for our expectations as well. Just think about your worst class. Is it really our worst class, or is this our expectations making them out to be? The Tetris effect is all about training your brain to see patterns. And when we talk about this effect, it has a huge relationship in positive thinking. It's imperative to train our brains to look for the happy and the good, and not all the mistakes and annoyances and the bad around us. We have to be very careful about what we have our brain scan for constantly. There's a study where a bunch of people played Tetris for several hours for 3 days straight. Afterwards, they had trouble falling asleep without thinking about shapes falling on their heads or seeing shapes everywhere, from traffic to boxes of cereal at the grocery store, and trying not to move those into the best formation to get the highest score. The same goes for training our brain to see positive happenings around us. We have to make a point to constantly scan and focus on the positive so we can become more joyful, grateful, optimistic, which is 3 of the positive emotions that happen to come from happiness. One way to jumpstart this is to make a list of 3 things that you are happy about or that made you happy during your day. It might start out kind of hard, but the more you do it, the harder it's going to become to stop at just 3. The next principle is talking about falling up. This is where you see failure as an opportunity, which if you've changed your perspective with the Tetris effect, this should be fairly easy to do. In quantum learning, which my school uses, there are 8 keys to success, and one of them is failure leads to success. FAIL has even been used as an acronym as standing for First Attempt in Learning. And we've all heard about Thomas Edison and his numerous failures before he finally invented the light bulb, and supposedly when asked about it, he said he didn't fail, he just happened to find a lot of ways of how not to make a light bulb. There's a cliche that says what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and that's another way of talking about falling up. Every failure is an opportunity. If we don't make any mistakes, we don't learn anything. The 5th principle is the Zorro circle, and that's the idea to start out small and manageable, and then gradually increase your circle to encompass more and more, and increase your circle and your awareness. This attitude helps you to conquer large tasks or really high goals. Think about this assignment. If you think of it as a whole, it was probably rather daunting, but if you break it up into small parts, it was much more manageable. Perspective is crucial when you're trying to fix a large problem in your life, be it an unfavorable work environment or just becoming a better individual. Think about how many of us have tried new diets or decided that we're going to go to the gym every day. How successful were you? When you eliminate a whole thing or do something from 0 to 60, chances are that you're not very successful for very long. But when you start out small and grow bigger as you have mastery over one thing and then another, the more successful you become. The 6th principle is the 20-second rule. And this is not a rule about eating food that's been dropped on the floor, but rather establishing a path of least resistance. The key thought here is that common sense is not common action. We all know that, say, fresh food or fresh veggies and fruit are better for us than, say, McDonald's, even those apples. But when you're in a rush, what do you reach for? Whatever is more convenient, right? So if we have a bad habit that we don't want, we need to make it more inconvenient so we don't do it. And we need to make our good habits more convenient so we do it. We're human beings who are going to find the path of least resistance. And we can break any bad habit by making it more difficult to get there, or we can make any good habit by making it easier to get there. The last and final principle is social investment, and that's talking about investing in your support group. The rest of these 6 principles only work as long as you can keep them going, and you can keep them going longer by utilizing your support group. If you happen to have a lot of work, a lot of schoolwork, say, or even a lot of assignments that you have to get done at your job, if you close off and start eating lunch at your computer desk, or eating lunch while you're reading things and not taking any study breaks or brain breaks, or even having a short, quick dinner with family or friends, you're going to become miserable and you're going to become less successful, and your happiness advantage is going to disappear. But when we do utilize those and make sure that we have those times with our friends and family, we become a more successful person and can utilize those other 6 principles much better. To wrap up my talk, I want to talk about one time where I used these principles somewhat unknowingly. I had a job where I wasn't very happy and that I had become actually a fairly not awesome worker, which is not something that I like to be. But I decided to employ the Zorro circle without ever knowing it. And I wanted to change me and my position at the job, and then eventually go on to other things as I mastered myself. But before I could even start that, by just changing my perspective, suddenly I got a call from the school district. And between an interview and an acceptance, I am now about to finish my 2nd year at a special education job. Finally, 10 years later after graduating college, having the teaching job that I had so many people tell me that I should probably just give up on. I kept hopeful, I kept a good mindset, and I focused on me, and suddenly luck or success fell into my lap. If those aren't the seven principles working, I don't know what is. Thanks.